Good evening, and welcome to the second emergency broadcast of Mowing After Dark in the last 5 days. I hope everybody is doing well. Big news day today for college football fans, especially for Realignment Junkies, like the two gentlemen joining me tonight, Rock and Rant Wild U. The ACC has reached a settlement with Clemson and Florida State. So we're going to give you our thoughts on it, take a look at some facts and figures and statistics. I want to thank everybody for coming in here. We're only broadcasting on YouTube tonight. It is a YouTube exclusive. We will try to get the comments if we can, but unfortunately, a lot of people are joining in here early. I know we're going to get sacked with comments. If there's anything you absolutely positively has to be read, it will have to be a super chat. I'm sorry. And once we get to 75 live viewers, we will gift away 5 more memberships to the community. All right. Now that we got business out of the way, make sure, I didn't get business out of the way. Make sure you like and subscribe. If you're not a subscriber, make sure you give us a like. We appreciate that. Helps us in the algorithm. Go tell a bunch of people we're on. Try and get that number to 75. That way you can have a chance to get a new membership. Well, let's start off with the ACC guy. ACC guy's here. Rock and Rant, Miami didn't spend a dime. What are your thoughts?
Well, I want to be consistent. A year ago, I was super pissed that Miami wasn't suing alongside Florida State and Clemson. I don't know whether it's dumb luck, strategy, whether Miami and Florida State talked and they knew a state entity would have a better shot. Don't really know. I'm still was pissed that we weren't part of it. I took all the good shots that FSU fans did, but you got to give them credit. Like, they took the shot, they got doubted a bunch, and at the end of the day, it may not be the most perfect thing that Florida State and Clemson got, but it's a really damn good option and opens up a whole lot of things and potentially even more depending upon whether the later breaking in the day rumors of exit fees earlier versus in 2030 come. So, like, props to them. I think there are rational reasons for Wake Forest and the others to have accepted this other than they had no choice. But I think it's a pretty awesome day for a lot of schools. I think it's a really scary day for schools that Wild Ute has probably identified as well. So, like, what do you think, Ute?
This is a really rough day for the milkers, and it's a huge day for the Bessies. The milk producers, it's an amazing day. Couldn't have gone really much better, guys. Like Florida State and Clemson in the courts, like we're talking months ago and stuff, would never imagine they would reach this level. If it is absolutely indeed true, as Andy Staples has reported, that you can pay out of the ACC for $200 million, maybe tomorrow, that is an unbelievable number. Beforehand, we were talking about $600, $700, $800 million to $1 billion to pay out. That has been reduced in half, a fourth, a third, whatever. But the math is just so on the side of anybody that has a landing spot where higher payouts are available. This is crazy. This is real. If indeed you can get out for $200 million, that is an absolute bargain. An absolute freaking bargain that you take, no brainer. So this is a day for the milk makers, the Bessies, and the milk suckers are going to have a hard time with digesting this information. It is not good news. If you're a milk sucker in the ACC, you might be able to suck a few more exit fees out for this $200 million and everything, but this isn't going to go well in the long term for you. So we're going to get all into it and stuff. There's a lot of numbers to break out. I've got some numbers for you guys too. And we'll just say it like it is. It is, you got to say it like it is. And today was one of the biggest days in college football realignment in years. This is massive news.
You'd be proud of me. I actually went back to my math side of life and played with ChatGPT and did some future value of money analysis, knowing you were actually at work, and I had some a free moment. I have to see whether or not I was right or not when we get.
Do you have the figures?
I do. I have it. I have the number written down. I didn't do a slide for it, but I basically looked and saw that if you're Miami, Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, assuming you could get out in June versus 2030, right? 200 million versus 100 million, which we'll get into. Essentially, it's if you could get $33 million of revenue, you're even. right? Now, they might not get that, which we'll get into. But it still might be worth it because of like the other things you get with it, including certainty and a landing spot. But that's the number. So let me know as we go whether that sounds right or not.
So $33 million per year, is that kind of what you're thinking as far as like the absolute cost? Lay that out a little bit more so we understand that a little
bit. To pay $200 million to leave now versus $100 million later.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like $100 million over 5 years when you're doing like cost of money valuations and everything with all the benefits that would come with an SEC or Big Ten invite, your increased ticket sales, like your relationship building and everything, not just the media rights, but your college football payouts. This is the easiest. I mean, seriously, a kindergartner can figure this one out, guys. This is so dang easy to make that decision and everything. It's a non-decision. It's a no-brainer. The only decision happens really when you're talking about Big 12, right? Like, hey, if you've got a landing spot in the Big 12, is that advantageous or not? That becomes a little bit more hazy, but I think there's argument that's pretty clear after you do some analysis into that too. If you're an ACC school with the Big 12 possibility invite to make that move as well.
Absolutely. We got a super chat here from our friend Greg Flugarian. You know this is a big show when I turned off Love is Blind Season 8 Minnesota edition. Is that the full name, Greg? To watch these three gentlemen. Thank you so much, Greg. That is much appreciated. And we got another super chat from our friend Kerry Go Knowles. As a Florida State fan and supporter of our AD, was ready to cut a $200 million check last year. Chop that ads.
Hey, man, thanks, Kerry. And keeping Kerry's family in our prayers today. He's had some tough stuff with his family, so I hope you're doing all right, man.
Yeah.
Yep. Hope you're doing well, sir. If you need anything, just reach out. I'm trying to find a sounder for you, buddy.
I've got something that's going to make Kerry happy too, okay? Like this is a little bit, it's related to so much news today. Obviously, like the $100 million payout announcement, like in 2030, that came out earlier in the day. Then later on, the Andy Staples $200 million tomorrow, essentially, you can leave for $200 million. That blew everyone's mind. This complete game changer. But the success and brand initiatives, guys, that are in the ACC right now. Brock, this is really relevant to you. I want to pull something up here. Here's our viewership share. Here's the milkers versus the non-milkers over the last 5 years. These are the Nelson rated games. We all know that they're going to factor in some non-Nelson rated games too for the ACC network. I had a nice discussion with a couple folks on X who make the claim that a ACC network game averages around 200,000 views per game, and I 100% disagree with that figure. I think it's more like 100, maybe 150 at max. It's really statistically immaterial in my mind. But these are the Nielsen-rated viewership. This is really what's going to drive everything. And our boy Kerry Go Knowles, this is over the last 5 years, folks. Their viewership share, Florida State, based on Nielsen-rated viewers, claimed 15.23% of all the ACC viewership when you throw in Stanford, SMU, and everybody else. I mean, it's an imperfect science because obviously Cal, Stanford weren't in the conference for 5 years, but this is a pretty good spitball method to do it too. So Florida State commanded 15% of all the eyeballs out of a 17-school sample here that you're looking at, with Clemson around 15%, roughly 14.73, and the Miami Hurricanes at 9.52. So when you're talking about success initiatives, they're going to be looking at a share number like this, the viewership share. You can call it a brand initiative, just some type of share number. Florida State, Clemson, and Miami are going to get paid, guys. We all knew that before. This is just verifying that. Florida State's going to get paid big time for their viewership performance. Forget that, like anything jumping over to the possible SEC or the Big Ten now. If you stay in the ACC, as long as you stay, you're going to get and reap the return of what you've actually put out there. No more getting milked, guys. This is the anti-milking provision that's been put in place. This is great stuff if you're Florida State. No more milk. The bank's completely dry. It's closed. Boston College, Wake Forest, you ain't going to milk anymore. Look, you can kind of see down here in this list, 15, 16 to 17. Wake Forest had a 3.12% viewership share. That's because they don't get on TV very often. They haven't been ranked very often. They don't have a big football brand. But with Florida State's massive 15.23%, you can see they're going to get paid up the wazoo here in the ACC, and they're going to pay the right way out of the ACC too to get in probably the Big Ten or the SEC.
Another super chat, this time from our friend Morris Simmons. $2 paid the 200 million and deuces. Go Knowles. Thank you for the super chat, Morris. Let's see here. We have passed that.
I don't make the rules, ma'am. I just think them up and write them down.
Thank you, Cartman. We passed the 75 members thing, so I'm going to gift some memberships here to the family. We got 5 more memberships to give away this month, and I am gifting them now. Let's see who ended up grabbing those memberships. There's a brand new members-only Wild Ute University that went up today. Why don't you speak to that a little bit, Wild Ute?
Yeah, it's so wild too. You put out a video and stuff, and like all of a sudden everything just hits you in the face with all the news today. But the video is actually laying out exactly the private equity structure, what the private equity looks like. Like, so really wanted to go back and kind of just lay the foundation of really what this deal's looking like with Redbird Capital and the Big 12 and what other private equity deals will look like too. It's a member only video, tried to make it so it made sense, give some metaphors, do some Q&A in that. So check it out. Hopefully you'll get some good insights from it. Understand how the deal's going to work in the future.
Absolutely. Marcus Williams, Steele Austin, Brett Taylor, Jamie Bangles Girl, and Braska Rascal. You all received a membership from the College Football Mafia family. You can now enjoy all the member benefits. That includes custom emotes here in chat, access to our video library, which has the Great Wild Ute University in it, as well as several other things. So please enjoy that. And if you did receive a gift, consider giving one forward, and it would be much appreciated. So let me pull this off here. Thank you again for your super chats, Kerry Knowles and Morris and Greg. Let's get back into it. Where do we start, gentlemen? Where do we start? Is this the death sentence of the ACC? I see Rock and Rant's got the casket up there. I am, of course, dressed in my normal Monday attire. Did today was the day that the death knell was written out for the ACC as we know it? It's for years the All Carolina Conference. You can't imagine that North Carolina is going to stick this out.
Go ahead, Rock.
Yeah, I think it's not the death of the ACC. I do think it's the death of the ACC as we know it, right? Like, this is the beginning of the end for 4 to 7-ish, maybe more conference members, whether that's people taking up opportunities that might materialize sooner or by 2030, that's what's going to happen. It's not the death of the conference itself, because schools like Wake Forest, things happen for a reason in a sequence that they're going to happen. ESPN didn't re-up the deal not knowing this was part of the negotiation, right? So that means that Wake Forest knew that, and others like Wake Forest, I'm just using them as a conference member that actually is getting revenue right now, as opposed to like SMU and is in the lower part of the TV ratings, not any indictment of the school. They know that they have a deal with ESPN through 2036, and they'll just backfill, and they'll be making whatever, $50+ million in those years, which means that teams that come, unless something weird happened that we haven't heard about in the renegotiation, the re-up, teams that backfill, a Memphis or Tulane, are going to get a massive bump up if they backfill, even though the ACC itself might not be as prestigious. So I think it's the end of one iteration, and it is the beginning of them being one of the more powerful medium conferences that is a very attractive place for AAC schools, Mountain West, in theory, whoever they decide they want to be, because that money is still going to be there through 2036, barring some new revelations that we haven't heard. What about you? What do you think, you?
I think that it's the end of the ACC as a Power 4 conference once this actually happens, and once the schools start to jump. It will remain a Power 4 conference until Florida State leaves with UNC to go to greener pastures, and at that point, there will be a new Power 3 dynamic. That is what's happened today. The ACC will remain in some iteration, kind of like the Pac-12 is today, and it probably will take American schools and everything. But I would push against that concept, Rock and Rant, of like, yeah, you've got a deal till 2036 with ESPN, but you better believe that will be renegotiated when schools leave. The payouts will not remain the same. The ACC network revenues will not remain the same. There will be kickers in that contract to have a lot less payouts, like half the payouts that they're getting today.
We will see.
We'll see.
I don't care, because I don't plan on being part of it. right? Ultimately. So I'm not doing it to like, oh my God, this is what's going to happen in Miami. But those things tend to leak pretty quickly. So if we hear I'm assuming that we didn't hear anything about other than a straight renewal or re-upping of the deal, the terms that were previously agreed to. If something else comes out, then it's a very different dynamic. But I'm just trying to figure out the rational reason other than being held up at gunpoint, why some of the schools towards the lower part that don't have options would willingly go like not just somewhat far to negotiating a settlement, but as drastic as it seems to be to a lot of us.
I just think there's limited options. I mean, what were you going to gain? Like, there was a risk where there would be Florida State wins the lawsuit and they pay $0. And then, like, as screwed as you are today, you'd be double screwed, triple screwed, quadruple, like, because you've got no money coming in. At least you're going to get paid some exit fees. This is like the lifeboat. Your $200 million in exit fees that you're going to get from the 5 schools that are going to leave is $1 billion. And that's going to be split, 12, 13 ways or whatever. And that's the reason they did this and stuff, because the risk of not having any exit fees was like basically suicidal for the programs. I really do. I just can't imagine any world where the ACC network payouts are going to be the same. Plus your college football money, because the look-in is going to be reduced significantly when schools jump. There's going to be a significant movement. And I think that like when Florida State, Miami, and Clemson leave the conference because of the weight in football, like you're going to be looking at a realm between the current ACC deal and the Pac-12 estimated deal. The Pac-12 estimated deal is about $8 to $10 million, based on all the reports that we've seen, maybe around $9 million. The current ACC payouts around roughly $30 million, as we've broken out on this channel. So you're probably looking around like in the high teens to 20s with those remaining schools, if you're lucky. Like, it's going to be significant. I just don't see how it's going to be any other way and stuff. ESPN's not an idiot. They're not going to tie themselves to paying too much out when these schools leave. That's the value of the conference. You've got nothing left to really make it financially viable anymore to do it. And so it's guys, this is a big deal.
Absolutely. We got a super chat here from our friend Miami Flo. He says, I'm just here so I don't get fined. Hit the like button. Thank you for that, Flo. I don't know who would find you, but I bet he's a bad man.
I'm a bad
Really bad.
man. You hear me?
Vox Quindara with a great comment. Doesn't Wild Ute run these numbers routinely? What are you questioning? Wild Ute knows what he's talking about. Wild Ute knows all. Thank you, Vox
Not all.
Quindara, for
I appreciate that.
For
Look, guys,
inflating Wild Ute's ego. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That's what we're here for, actually.
We did a video, like, and Nate actually mentioned it too. We did a video about 8 months ago on like the ACC survival numbers, right? And at that time, based on the information we had, the number was around $300 million. That when you broke it out, the future cash flows and everything, that made it the number, the drop dead number, the ACC settlement couldn't be below for schools not to be jumping, because it's more advantageous to jump if it was less than $300 million. Go check out that episode and stuff. There was a lot of math that went into that, but a lot of thought too. And I think that was actually nails. I mean, I would actually move some numbers slightly around because we've got more detail in some of the numbers, but man, like, there's just no way. The whole idea with that is there's no way at the $200 million mark that people aren't going to jump. The schools aren't going to jump if they've got an opportunity.
Absolutely. And we'll post that link directly to our Twitter account after the show's over. So make sure you're following us on Twitter at the CFB Mafia. All right. Nate has joined us. I want to let everybody know we did surpass 100 viewers there briefly. So let's celebrate that. We passed triple digits. We'll go ahead and have a drink to that. I appreciate everybody coming in the chat. Again, if it's something positive, we'll try to get to comments if we can, folks. I know a lot of people are excited. A lot of people are out there talking. But if you want to guarantee it gets read, it has to be a super chat tonight. I apologize. You know I'm Moan After Dark. We try and read as many comments as we can. But it's one of those days, brother. One of those days.
So who stole my I'm only here so I don't get fined? Who said that? Because that was going to be my intro.
That was Flo, man. He must be watching you.
Stole it from me. I love Flo. You guys' show is awesome. I don't want to talk at all. I already talked too long. I just want to
no. I got to hold you accountable for some of your comments. You got to stay for a few.
Okay, but I don't want to take over is what I'm saying. But I just wanted to say two things. First, thank you to everyone you guys, our fans are the best. I really appreciate you sticking around and following the actual data, which Ute has that we can talk about. And the other thing is, I just need to make an announcement. On Wednesday night, I will have Bob Thompson live at 8 p.m. Eastern. Bob Thompson is he's the guru of realignment, media money, everything else. Fox president, Fox Sports president. So I just wanted to make that announcement. Now I won't say anything unless obviously Rockwood
Former
wants to get me.
Fox
Well,
Sports
that-
president.
Tuesday night, you have David McKenzie, or you had David McKenzie. Is he still?
I'm
is he
waiting
canceled yet, or is
there's a
he-
super chat.
Okay.
I don't know. I've asked
Okay.
him again to confirm. Today might have rocked his world, to be honest.
Okay, well, tune in to check us out on Twitter tomorrow to see if David McKenzie is going to be on the show tomorrow night. If he is, I think that's a monster show right there, Nate.
Huge.
Got a super chat here from our friend MBM. Will the Big 12 be able to fork out $200 million per team to expand? Huge news today. Great show. Yeah, that is. We'll let him cook on that.
Let
Thank
him
you for the
cook.
super chat, sir.
Let him
Let him
cook
cook.
now. Let him cook. I said, let him cook.
Give you a little hot milk for that. Maybe another sounder. We got some. time
Whoa,
here.
the hot milk bone? What is
Hot.
Nobody likes milk except when it's hot. Come on.
gross?
MBM out here making it rain. He's showing that they've still got that oil money there at Oklahoma State. Thank you, MBM. Much appreciated, sir. You got all the milk. You don't need any milk.
Whoa, Nelly!
And then that was followed up by, well, we'll get back to that comment in a second, MBM. I do promise, because we are going to talk about availability and likability of teams for the Big 12 Conference. But our friend Earl Carr has gifted 5 more memberships to the College Football Mafia family. Let's get that cougar roar.
Get that
Yes,
cougar
sir.
up. Where's that cougar?
I don't have a cougar for Moan
That
After
was
Dark yet.
legitness. Yeah, it was. Huh?
Thank you for the 5 gifted memberships, Earl Carr. As always, you were a super stud. VC Noel, Benjamin Griffin, Amazing Blue, MGC Sooner, and K Struthers. You were all gifted a membership by our friend Earl Carr, the Cougar Man. If you're live here in chat, make sure you thank Earl Carr for those memberships, as we thank Earl Carr for those memberships. And we also thank everybody for their super chat so far this evening, especially you, MBM, with that $50 super chat. That is fantastic. That helps us keep the lights on here at the College Football Mafia Network. Lets us continue to produce great shows like Wild Ute University, Moan After Dark, and the Big Freaking Friday Show. By the way, little programming note, Big Freaking Friday Show gets a rebrand this Friday.
Ooh.
What?
Yeah.
What?
You will definitely want to check that one out.
Mm.
All right, so we're going to go back to MBM Super Chat here. We got 2 Big 12 guys here. Will the Big 12 be able to fork out $200 million per team to expand? Huge news today. Now, I just want to preface this, MBM, by saying I have been on the phone this afternoon with 2 different people who are generally in the know. They cannot verify this $200 million article yet.
Really?
Cannot do it.
What do you mean
Cannot
can't verify it?
They can't verify it. The only source we have is on 3.
Yep.
And I'm not taking anything away from Mr. Staples at On 3. On 3
my
is a
gosh.
very reputable source. It's just he's the only one I've seen put it out there so far. So
He is the only one I've seen as well, but I also have not seen anyone push back on it either,
Right.
for whatever that's worth.
That's true.
I would like to see some double confirmation though. But
Absolutely. The other one got
Good.
double confirmation right away, so I totally get it.
Let you answer that, Moan.
Okay, so the Big 12 will not. Okay, let's back up for a little bit. So if ACC teams become available, I think we first need to outline like the ideal optimized conference for the Big 12. And in my opinion, it's 20 teams. There's 16 teams in the Big 12. You're looking at 4 prospects. Nate agrees with that. We've heard a lot of feedback, even from like the likes of Bob Thompson and everything. The 20 teams is an ideal structure for the Big 12. That means there's 4 spots for all the ACC teams, for all the Pac-12 targets, candidates, for UConn and everything. There's 4 spots for best optimization. So that's it. There's only a limited seats on the bus, guys. There's 4. And so, like, looking at prime targets in the ACC that would be willing to jump over to the Big 12, there's probably like 6, 7 schools that you'd really consider like strong candidates and everything. But going back to the question here, I don't think that the Big 12 is going to be obligated in any way, shape, or form of paying the exit fee of these schools. They're going to be obligated to pay a good portion of it or all of it to go to the Big 12 conference. I mean, the Big 12 doesn't need ACC schools unless they can get a Miami, a Clemson, or a Florida State that would really juice everything. But if you're looking at more of the upper mid-tier brands, like your Virginia Techs, that would be a very good prospect. Like your Pitts, they just aren't going to move the needle as much for the Big 12. So you can't stretch out that much if you're the Big 12. You can stretch out a little bit. You can help a little bit with the fees, but you definitely aren't going to cover the cost of the fees. It's just not financially viable to do that. But there's such incentive now with a school like Virginia Tech. NC State's another one. Louisville's certainly one too. Like I'm looking over at the Big 12 because of all the opportunities, because of the cost certainty, the revenue certainty, because of the private equity opportunities that we're talking about. Like, went into the members only video, go check that out, guys. That private equity opportunity for the Big 12 could be massive. We've talked about that over the last couple of weeks on this channel. But like that, we're talking about adding, maybe $10 million per school per year with different revenue streams. And already the ACC and the Big 12 payouts are pretty similar. If you're a school like Virginia Tech, you're probably going to be taking a pay cut in this new world of the ACC because of the brand initiatives, because your viewership figures. If you're Louisville, you might be flat and you might be taking a pay cut. So the Big 12 will soon be making more money than those schools in the current iteration, in my opinion. And when any school leaves, I think you're going to get a renegotiated ACC contract, and these schools are going to be begging to jump and doing whatever it takes to get out of the conference to go to higher land, and it's going to be the Big 12. To answer the question, to loop it around, I think that they're going to be on the hook for most of it, but the Big 12, if they really want you, they will help with a bit of the fees.
Well done.
Fair enough, but I feel remiss not bringing this up. We did see the ESPN extension for the ACC teams, and we know Florida State, Miami, and Clemson all get Notre Dame. That's one less game in the ACC conference for those ACC teams towards the bottom to play a Florida State, a Miami, a Clemson. That would actually bring up their average. Right. So not only would they get screwed on this deal, they would get screwed on that extension from ESPN. Sure, it goes through 2036, but now with television ratings, you get one less. If you're Wake Forest and you don't have Florida State, Miami, and Clemson on your schedule for the entire season, what's going to be your marquee game? It's probably going to be an out-of-conference game.
Most likely.
So I don't know.
They
I think
they screwed seriously. Yeah. The top brands in the ACC screwed everybody else and rigged the deck. That's exactly what's happened. They rigged the deck. Like, you are really screwed if you're Wake Forest. Even if you're like Georgia Tech sitting there with a really good brand, Louisville. If I'm a Louisville fan, I am furious at everything that's going on. You just got dissed so dang bad. Why would you even want to stay in the ACC? Rock, like, I know that I'm not an ACC guy, but from like the Cardinals' perspective, how could you be happy about any of this?
Oh, I don't think you can be happy about any of it. I think that if you're Louisville, and I know you don't have everything like memorized, though you probably sort of do. If you're Louisville, you're Virginia Tech, but definitely Louisville specifically to me, and you think about where your TV ratings are, right, broadly in football, taking basketball aside, and where that stands to the conference and the markets that you can bring, like, on that will help the private equity deal. Like, I'm wondering which one of those schools is going to be the first, maybe not at the $200 million mark. Let's see if that's actually a thing. We don't know, but let's say it becomes the thing, maybe not 200 million, but maybe it's like 2 years in 100, like somebody's going to bite first. Like, somebody's going to be afraid to be the 21st team if like the Big 12 scenario you're talking about comes, where if they went first, who's going to be the Colorado, I guess, is my question.
Yeah.
Right. Like, who's going to be the Colorado of the ACC? And when once we hear all the numbers, what is the time that somebody who might not be the first in the list is the first to make a move, and therefore they get the better deal or the better opportunity or guarantee?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. We got another super chat here from our friend Ricky Tungate. Mm-hmm. Mr. Hoosier, would have Calford and SMU been able to leave since ACC will not be there? Great question. I don't know how tied into the grant of rights those three schools are.
They are all in.
They're all
They have
in.
the same
so
grant of rights.
there you go. Got it straight
Yeah.
from the ACC guys' mouth. Ricky Tungate, of course, is a great supporter of ours, and he is a Hoosier fan, and he will tell you that cream always rises to the top.
But the cream will rise to the top. Oh, yeah. Macho Madness, yeah.
Thank you so much for your super chat, Ricky.
Yeah, those three teams are just deferred on when they're getting the ESPN media portion of the revenue, not all of the revenue of the ACC. The 30% share and the 0% share for SMU. It's not all of their revenue sources that they don't get, but they are in a different position in like 2031-ish, give or take, if I recall. But in terms of signing to like the grant of rights and all the other responsibilities of being a conference member, they're as screwed as Louisville or Florida State would be in terms of that. Same prices are there.
So you're looking
Absolutely.
here in your SMU. You didn't take any media rights distributions. You're getting a little college football playoff cut, but now the brand initiatives are in. So the likelihood that you're going to get any money in the future is just completely gone. Like any idea of long-term stability from SMU is just gone. Like it's wild. Like if you are a Mustang fan, this is a rough day. Like the ACC will exist in some iteration, but it will not be a power 3. I'm going to start calling it a power 3, guys, because that's where we're going right now. The Big 12 is the third power conference. That's what happened today. SMU, that's rough. And if you're Cal, Stanford probably has a landing spot in the Big Ten. Moen said it all the time. We know the Big Ten's interested. Cal's mega screwed. Cal and SMU, what do you do?
I think, listen, I don't think Cal's mega screwed. I think they need to call Notre Dame tonight if they haven't called them already.
And do what?
And basically beg them to drag them into the Big Ten.
Yeah, I don't.
Listen, they drug them into the ACC. There's nothing saying they couldn't drag them into the Big Ten.
Oh, of course, it's possible.
And, you know,
yeah,
with,
of course.
we know with the media bump that Notre Dame immediately gives to the Big Ten, it would carry Notre Dame plus 3 schools.
Yes.
So they could name 3 schools and effectively be able to carry all 3 of those schools. It wouldn't shock me if the Big Ten goes to 24 that they add both Cal and Stanford. And it's not because they're getting a great market in San Francisco that loves football. It's because Big Ten presidents love nerds. And Cal and Stanford have a lot of nerds, and the Big Ten presidents love that. It's one of the reasons I think they love Georgia Tech too. I think Georgia Tech is still that dark horse candidate out there. Everybody drank that could potentially be the travel partner for Miami in the Big Ten. Got another super chat from our friend, Mr. Seminole. Kerry Go Knowles. We will soon see if UNC has the juice the so-called experts say they have. I say severely overrated. Go Knowles. Thank you again for that super chat, Kerry. Let me get you a good sounder here. We'll give you a little Joe.
I couldn't care less about the team struggling.
Our good old friend Broadway Joe. Kerry, if you need anything, brother, just reach out on Twitter. You know how to get a hold of any of us here. Appreciate the super chat, sir.
So I'm intrigued. What question do you have for me, Rock? This is curious.
Well, I know. I guess I don't know. I didn't hear every single part of the conversation, and so I could have been juxtaposing you and your partner in crime, Immaculate, there about that. Nothing's going to happen right away. Like I don't know if anything's going to happen right away, but I do think that anybody speculating that nothing will happen when the ground is completely shifted is a little bit weird because any deal can be redone. And I guess I don't even know if I'm arguing back. Here's kind of my point. Florida State, Clemson, we'll just start there. So it's not even like tinted by Miami. I don't even think they would care if they got a half share in the Big Ten tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
As long as they does anybody believe whatever the contract is or isn't that either ESPN, if they went into the SEC, or the Big Ten with Fox, CBS, NBC would be like, hey, like Florida State, you're getting $43 million right now from the ACC. That's not going to be a half share of what the Big Ten deal is in a couple of years. But like, you don't think that they would take them in for a rate of less than half share, or that Florida State or any of those schools wouldn't take that certainty so they could build for the future? I think every single network would do that. And my main point was that I know you saw my comment. If you have the SEC and the Big Ten right now trying to schedule against each other to make their networks deals more valuable today, Why wouldn't they want to take schools that could also in conference make sure you get less options of Purdue versus Northwestern, and more times when you have Florida State or Clemson or whoever it might be, improving the brand name games within the conference, knowing what we know about all of that right now. Like, that was my general take of it. Doesn't matter what was happening yesterday.
Right.
It's like, what would happen today going
Yeah.
forward? And Florida State, I think, would take any relative deal, regardless if it was a half share like Washington and Oregon, is just to get the hell out.
I agree with everything you just said. So I'm not sure where the disagreement came from. I think in the timing circumstance, it could happen tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah.
It could happen right after they sign the deal. They could announce Clemson and Florida State to go to Conference X. I think there's two things that we all need to remember. The Redbird thing was just announced last week out of the blue.
Yeah.
With no real reason
blue.
to make that announcement, right?
Out of the blue.
Out of the blue. So
Right.
that is now in public sphere. And the other thing is I don't think anybody but Notre Dame brings a roughly $70 million valuation to the
But I
SEC
don't-
or the Big Ten. So then what's
That's
the
what I was referring to.
urgency? What's the
There is-
urgency for those conferences to expand?
There isn't urgency if you assume that Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti can absolutely trust each other.
Sure, I understand.
Right. And
Yeah.
urgency, just because you don't have to do something just out of urgency. You can do things opportunistically if you see what's going to happen and make a proposal. Like, I don't doubt that any of these schools are going to add value, add additional revenue to every school that's already in the Big Ten prior to a new TV deal. But that's assuming that's what you need to do. Strategically, you might be like, I just want to get you in because right now what I can do over the next 3 years or 4 years, assuming the $200 million thing is a thing, which we don't know.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that just like we're going to make our pre-conference schedule better for you TV ratings wise, we're going to make our in-conference schedule that much better by adding 2 or 3 marquee teams that can play against our already existing marquee teams, so that when our new deal is up, all of our deal values will go up higher because we drew better during that time, even if in the meantime if you don't take any money away from me in the meantime, right?
Yeah,
in terms of the
nobody's going to
TV,
lose. Minnesota's not going to take a penny
Yeah.
less.
So, but I think you'll get shares regardless of contract. All those other schools would make some more money in the meantime, right? Because if you put Florida State into your stadium, those tickets can be priced more or whatever it might be. That was kind of just my point.
Right. Go ahead, you.
We got another super chat. Go ahead,
We
Mark.
got a super chat here, and I'm going to go to you for this one. If I was Kansas, go ahead and give a Jayhawk squawk. I would ask for a look-in clause to any private equity deal to get out by 2029. They could be locked in until 2040 or longer. I know you did a members-only video on this shoot, but can you give me a quick 30-second response to kind of sum up your thoughts on the private equity or private capital deal with the Big 12 and Redbird?
Yeah, I think that's like the answer to the question here. Go Black. I think that you could have a look-in clause where you'd have to pay out to a private equity firm, kind of like a Gore. I do see the private capital structure and stuff much like a Gore. I think that that's exactly how they're going to want to structure it. They're going to want every team in the conference to commit over a long period of time, probably to coincide with maybe the grant of rights for a media contract. So 5-year, 10-year, 15-year period and stuff. No one's going to make a short-term 1 month, 2 month investment and everything. So if KU is looking to leave and they want to negotiate out, they're going to pay a lot of money to the private equity firm to get out, just like a grant of rights. And I can promise you one thing, private equity firms know they do their due diligence, guys. And so you think you're going to get out with a private equity firm like you could with a media company? They're going to get you. They're going to get you. So you got to double down if you're KU and every single school in the Big 12 and say, this is the conference I'm going to be in. I'm committing to for the next 10 years or more if you sign the deal.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a great point, and we have to talk about this because we haven't even mentioned this yet. Where does the ACC stand on a private equity or capital investment deal? I mean, are you going to be as a private equity or capital investment company looking to drop $1 billion on a conference that might not be there tomorrow, let alone 5 years down the road in 2029, 2030?
No. And if you're Florida State, you're not going to sign on a deal like that because you're not going to commit to a Core 2.0. The ACC is not going to do a significant private equity deal, private capital deal, because of the current makeup. They're just not. There's not going to be an opportunity unless it's for vending machines or something like seriously for $5-10. Nothing of consequence here.
Here's the question I think that impacts that is we do need to find out whether this $200 million thing is a thing, right? And you like the only, not even a pushback, just like a frame of reference I'll put out is in licensing of IP deals, right? Where someone is acquiring the right to help you make more money in general. A lot of those deals in sports and entertainment places are not like 10 years and 15 years like you might find in private equity or private capital. But if it's more of a strategic partnership, a lot of those deals can be 2 to 3 years, can be 5 years, some like long-standing partnerships where, like Coke and NFL go on forever, a little bit longer. So if there's not a $200 million deal and it's, money coming in to basically license and expand the ability to do something great with IP, then I think the ACC could do like a 4 to 5 year deal, but it won't be as crazy as what the Big 12 could do. I think you'd probably wind up seeing a lot more schools trying to do some like localized deals in the medium. But I guess it really depends upon what the definition of these things are. It's like, is it more parts of private capital, private equity zone? Is it an infusion of cash to really blow up the IP behind the conferences? That's like, I guess, the question. And that $200 million exit tomorrow versus 5 years from now is a huge question on what will happen to that.
Yeah, and like the structures, the upfront capital, and like the revenue stream that's newly created. So what private equity firm is going to give a boatload of upfront capital when you don't have the certainty that FSU is going to be in the conference? You don't give a crap about investing in Jim Phillips' face. You want the Knowles, right? Like that's what you're paying for is the Knowles, the Canes. You don't care about the ACC title, like the branding. You care about the schools that are involved in the ACC. The Pac-12 today doesn't have the significance it had 2 years ago. So you are not doing a significant deal, unless every school agrees to it in like the midterm, long term of significance. I think we're both in agreement on that too. Rocket Rant.
Absolutely. I want to thank you, Go Black 45, for that super chat. Play you a little sound effect here. This is Youth's favorite sound effect at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's quite pleasant, actually. It's like a gentle tug. Okay, slightly less gentle now. Oh! My udders are on fire!
Thank you for the super chat, Go Black 45. I could play the cougar roar and lie to you and tell you it's a tiger, but we won't do that.
I mean, who needs a flasher when we got that?
Oh my gosh.
We don't have to bring out the Willy Whacker blocker tonight. Sankey Petiti meeting in New Orleans. This is from our friend Steele Austin, newly member. Sankey Petiti meeting in New Orleans signals that they're planning a controlled demolition of the ACC Big 12 as we know it. There are 14 spots left to get both leagues to 24 and break away.
Never happened.
Now it's definitely going to happen.
Can we reset really quick, Moen? I know Ute has to go,
Yeah.
or you have to go. Just Ute one more time. Explain why 200 million is not enough.
Well, yeah, because 200 million, when you're looking at the existing media deals for the Big 12 and the ACC, and you do something called a present value of cash flow analysis, who cares what like that terminology? It means how much is the contract worth to you today that you signed? When you factor in the value of the ACC's contract and its current makeup and the Big 12 contract and its current makeup, the point of 300 million or less, it becomes advantageous for schools to jump from the ACC to the Big 12. That's what we're talking about. So if you've got an opportunity to jump to the SEC or the Big 10, those numbers are even lower. They're even higher. So you'd be willing to pay more and more to get out to jump to the Big 10 or the SEC. But that's basically the threshold for Big 12 jumping for an ACC team if the payout for the exit of the conference is less than $300 million. So when we're talking about getting out for $200 million, that's 67% what we're talking about. Like, so it's a no-brainer. It's not really a big thought, actually, like financially, if you can have a certainty of the revenue streams that the Big 12 pay out and the opportunities. So 200 million is an absolute no-brainer if you can jump to the SEC, the Big 10, and also, based on the analysis, the Big 12. Although it's not quite as, the numbers aren't quite as big and everything, it's still advantageous.
Yeah, and I want to bring up, Nate brought up a great point. We don't know what's going to happen. Tomorrow, 5 schools could leave. 5 schools could cut a check for $200 million and say, we're out of here. Or they could wait till 2029, or they could just stick with the ACC for eternity. We don't know, but there's probably a pretty good likelihood. We know the Big Ten media deal is up in 2029, 2030, and the SEC is up in 2034, I believe. But that's not going to stop the SEC. Look, the SEC wants North Carolina. How bad do they want North Carolina? Are they willing to take North Carolina State? They want Virginia. How bad do they want Virginia? You know, it's one of those things. We don't know what we don't know. What we do know is what's being reported right now, and that's tomorrow. The ACC, the Clemson and Florida State Board of Trustees are getting together to discuss this settlement and probably formally vote to accept this settlement. It puts in place unequal revenue sharing by hook or by crook, depending on which way you look at it. And 2029, that fee is $100 million to get out of the conference, all inclusive. That's I mean, it's $100 million. I'm not sitting here like I'm wiping my ass with $100 bills, but $100 million is still a lot of money. But in the grand scheme of things, that's 1 year of a payment. By the time 2029 rolls around, that's 1 year worth of media payout for every Big Ten team, except Oregon and Washington.
Yeah, for sure. And the other part of that too, like Moen, is, you know, if it was actually reported that it might be less than 100 million, right? Like it's probably close there, so it could be a little bit less. And if you're a research university and you go into the Big Ten, over the course of just the next contract alone, your research side is probably going to make that up in that period without even batting an eye. I did have a question for you from a Big Ten perspective. So Nate brought up earlier that there's no urgency for the Big Ten or the SEC to expand, and I don't disagree with that. But how do you think, or what is your gut from people you talk to say, like how the Big Ten might respond to having the certainty of availability to contemplate? And how much do you think the Big Ten and SEC can trust each other?
That's a great question. Fantastic question. I don't know if you can trust each other. But then again, Petiti and Sankey, this isn't their first go round. I'm sure this has been discussed, this potential outcome, these schools becoming available on the market. I have to think that there's going to be some overlap. The Big Ten and the SEC probably both want North Carolina. I think we can guarantee they both want North Carolina. There's going to be schools where there's not overlap. I think Miami's going to be eminently more desirable to the Big Ten than the SEC. And that's not a shot against Miami. It's just the way it is.
Yep.
So, I mean, and then, you know, Kansas is another one of those weird, you know, the Big Ten could take them, the SEC could take them. They kind of fit in both conferences. So, you know, I don't know if they've worked out a deal. If they've worked out a deal and just kind of have a handshake deal that, okay, you take A, B, and C, and I get D, E, and F, this, you know, that's the thing you don't want to do is get caught in a bidding war. If they've got
being told having you have a handshake deal, because then Wake Forest owns everybody forever.
Yeah. Or you could have a fixed bid system where you're not going to outbid the other guy for a team, or some kind of agreement like, okay, we can both approach it, but we're not going above X because we don't want to set a precedent that another school could use us for leverage.
So this is we've done this for how many months now? I keep coming back to the same question that you asked 2 years ago. What is the motivation for realignment? What is the purpose of moving schools from one conference to another? If it's just money, money can be solved. Private equity, investment, you can beg for money like Ohio State's done in the past. Or you can just leave what's already there and shuffle the decks, the chairs around on the Titanic, and everybody go in the same direction. I don't see a motivation to pay more money for schools that aren't worth that value just because. There has to be some super event that is going to cause that type of movement. You're talking hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars additional. Why? Nobody can answer the why for me.
I'm not sure if I...
Let me just expand
Go
on
ahead,
that. Because I know exactly what Nate's talking about. So if the Big Ten and media payouts and college football payouts, if we're saying each Big Ten institution is worth $80 or $90 million per year today, on like this new contract, right? What schools in the ACC can meet that threshold in value? Like, okay, so if it's $80 million, the hurdle, right? This is the hurdle right now, the Big Ten contract. The ACC schools are largely, most of them are way less than that, what they can yield in the market as far as media worth. Who can get to 80 million or more? Maybe Florida State, maybe Clemson, maybe.
I think you guys sometimes look way too narrowly, man. Like I think it's really about the TV specifically. We're not having a good factor on like understand streaming versus cable, but for a while there's still cable. There's the aspect for those schools of like expanding into new states worth X, right? There is planning for where people are actually going to freaking live and be in a few years, including where your alumni are. It's the value of like advertisers and audience, even if you don't have a bigger audience necessarily. It's we talked about this last night. Golf over indexes for their ad rates relative to their audience size. They don't do better than the NFL, but because people want to reach a specific demographic, they're willing to pay more, even though they're not getting the same CPM, cost per thousand people watching it. Then there's, other potential reasons that you're wanting to go there. That could be just rounding out a portfolio. It could be just, Greg has talked about the pending doom of like schools not having enough people, so they want to expand into other markets. I think there are a number of other factors, and yes, this is an argument that favors like talking about Miami, Clemson, and Florida State, but I don't think it's just this one specific thing of like, will you get this amount of audience there? Plus, you have to guess what happens to Florida State's TV ratings, which are already good, when you swap. We talked about, Wake Forest is losing, Florida State, Miami, Clemson, Notre Dame. What happens to Florida State's overall TV rankings when, yes, they might get stuck with whatever, Purdue or Vanderbilt, but they also get not just Alabama once, they get Michigan a lot, they get Penn State a lot, they get all these things a lot. Like, we're not comparing apples to apples. So what happens when you put specific brands into those places? Are we really thinking that Florida State's doing 1.65 million for a 2-10 season if they also happen to have played Ohio State, Michigan, whoever it might be, or Alabama or Georgia? So like, that's where I don't think that we can automatically assume we know what their value is going to be about when they haven't played the schedule, the type of brands that they would if they moved.
But we can have an educated conversation, and I think all those attributes go into saying, are they worth 80 million bucks? Or are they worth like whatever bar the Big Ten is going to assign? Say your value. Are you valuable enough to add? Are you a value add or not? That's basically what it is. What school is a value add? There's going to be a lot of different attributes to that. It's going to be a location. It might be like new student populations, media rights. It's not just the viewership, right? But everything that when you pile it all together, you can spit out a number, a value proposition number. Is it worth it or not?
If it was that obvious, then we don't need to do any more shows. And those
that's where, Rock and Rant, that's why we make models, man.
But I'm saying, like, if it was that obvious, we would already hear from these conferences that nothing's ever going to happen, and we wouldn't be going through this if like they haven't done some calculations that the future value of money, 200 million versus 100 million now, is going to provide X, right? Like, if we think they're that smart, if like Greg Sankey's a jerk but brilliant, and if Petitti's like quiet but brilliantly evil, they have done something with whoever they're thinking about beyond just like UNC is God with 300,000 TV audience on football, but they're great in basketball. They would have already done that, and we would have already heard there's literally no way these schools are ever going, right? As opposed to like, we're not looking to expand at this time. That's like my take on it. Like, I think we're missing something in the calculations of where they think of things in 2035 versus like in 2023, a year or two after COVID.
And if we're talking about our personal preference, I think you and I both agree. Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, those are the top brands. If they expand, those are the brands that go. I mean, that's obvious. We're not disagreeing with that. Miami's in that list. So
I don't want all this to be going on, right?
Like, if you're Greg Sankey, you've done this. Like, I would push back if you don't think he's done that analysis and knows exactly like who's going to be a value add for the conference. That's part of analysis for any type of business transaction.
The also analysis is that those brands are better than 1/3 of my current brands in here, right?
Sure.
They're milkers. They're the wild milkers of the SEC.
Four brands, there's like 48%, Rock.
Yeah, I'm saying in the SEC too, right? And in the Big Ten, if you slot them in, are you adding relative value over the long run for where those are, as opposed to like the $80 million for the SEC is inflated because some schools are carrying all the milk, right? But those schools would not be milk. You know, the number's inflated because of them, and it's deflated by a few schools at the bottom. Florida State, if they were to go to the SEC, is definitely adding, you know, if we did some better calculation of what percentage of the value of that deal does every school have, they'd fit in like somewhere in the middle-ish, right? Probably for the SEC.
Yeah.
So maybe they're
That's
thinking long
that's
term.
why I support a Super League. I mean, like,
I know.
Just to expand that out. Like, what do you think I push Super League so much?
And it brings Utah
Get rid of all the
along
big
with it.
milkers in every conference, and then you just have a baseline.
You know, Morris is like, what the hell? Rock is defending Florida State. Like, what the hell's going on in the world?
Well, I don't think it's about defending or attacking or any of that. It's just about what is the common sense word. Right now, is the economy good? Right now, are we still fighting inflation? There's bigger geopolitical things. You and I
Yeah,
both know
I'm
that,
old
Rock,
enough to know that.
are
I'm old enough to
impacting life.
remember that all media rights deals are going down, and then the NBA was going up despite their ratings going down.
I don't think they're necessarily going down, but I don't think they're going up marginally.
We'll see.
Yeah,
There's never been a down deal in TV sports rights other than the NHL when they went off of NBC.
The Pac-12 would have been deflationary.
Yeah, well, that was like, I mean, when you don't like kill your conference in the process and lost.
There's qualifiers.
Like if you haven't lost like 6 schools, of course, like, you know,
okay,
that's going to happen. Like that's
okay.
The NHL didn't lose 6 teams, including like New York, right?
Yeah.
At the time that they did it.
Absolutely. Got a super chat here from our friend Morris Simmons, Florida State. FSU numbers will skyrocket in the Big Ten. Remember, these are student athletes, Morris.
Student athletes. Oh, that is brilliant, sir.
Keep that in mind.
I think I want to answer this real here from Shonsky. Oh, sorry, wrong one. He wasn't negative. Movie Time Blues says, man, people are downright cynical here. I don't. That's not what we're saying. We're just doing an analysis. There's no. There might be a little emotion, but we're just trying to present the data, so then you can make up your own mind. It's not about being cynical or positive or negative. These are just facts and analysis. There's no, at least on my part, there's no emotional attachment. I cheer for things, I root for things, but then I'm also a realist. And I know the 4 brands that can go somewhere tomorrow, they're driving the bus.
No, don't listen to Nate. He sent me an ibis with like pins in it, like it was a voodoo doll.
All right. Rock and Rant has to get out of here. He's got a show to do with Rec Talk. We're going to run maybe.
Good stuff, Rock and Rant.
We will see you
Good
Sunday,
guys.
Rock and Rant. If not before then, on another emergency episode.
Yeah,
of
how about
Going
no more
After Dark.
emergencies? That would be nice. Let's
Rec Talk will be here tomorrow night. Sorry, Moen.
Yeah, it's what I was going to promo that as well, Nate.
Oh, okay.
Just,
we're just sleeping around.
Yeah. Rec Talk is a hell of a man because he's from Georgia Tech.
Hey, if you want some reasonable for Rock and Rec Talk, if you guys actually want somebody to come in and add reason to your conversation, I'm sitting here.
I'll let him know.
Okay.
I was hoping we'd both be emotional Rec Talks, but we'll see what happens. All right, guys. I'll talk to you all later.
Thanks for
everybody.
coming.
Rock.
Good job,
Thanks for
Rock.
coming in.
Good.
Got another super chat from our friend Daniel Gygax. Just the facts with Daniel Gygax. What is Notre Dame going to do? That's the big question. I don't even know, Daniel. I don't even know.
Shit, I don't even know. Like, I can't even tell you that. Like,
Thank you for the super chat, sir. It is much appreciated. All right. Did you get some comments started here for us? We're going to run through comments as quick as we can, guys, and try and get some of them. As always, we defer to members' comments first. That is one of the benefits of being a member. Let's see. Tom Dubay. I think the Big 12's band of equals characteristics is an attribute that creates more private capital interest at a conference level than what the hierarchical ACC is.
Yeah, so what the benefit is the Big 12 has more obviously stability, and like the Big 12 would be, the member institutions would be more willing to sign on a longer term agreement with a private equity firm to do a deal. So I think that the private equity would be certainly interested in Florida State and the big brands of the ACC, but the Big 12 stability, the way that they're kind of insulated a little bit more from the Power 2, getting plucks from the Power 2 and everything, I think that actually provides support for private equity investment and surety and stuff, so they feel more comfortable investing in the Big 12. The question for the Big 12 is, can you get everybody on board? If you have to sign a long-term agreement, that's going to be a grant of rights 2.0. Can every school agree that we're going to be here for the long haul? That's going to be the thing.
Absolutely. Stormy Cyclone says, everyone get the bottle ready. Georgia Tech name will be brought up a lot tomorrow night.
Georgia
Absolutely.
Tech.
Nate, you might want to get that soundboard ready and get some Georgia Tech stuff on there.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I-
Mullen, you are out of focus. Nope, you're drunk. Yes, the camera goes out of focus on my pale white skin quite a bit. Timothy Green, OG Timothy Green, Rock and Rant have been great. We'll see you next time. Georgia Tech at Syracuse. Drank up. Thank you, Timothy Green. Much appreciated, sir. BYU football. This is our friend Shonsky. Besides Oregon, the Pacific Northwest was awful. Oh, well, Shonsky, we have one season you're going off of. The year prior, Washington went to the national championship game. And Oregon had the unfortunate task of playing against the greatest team in college football this season.
That's true.
It hurts them. Jose, Mr. Trojan, the hypocrisy of the leprechaun begging for Florida State while in ACC, but God forbid traveling to Tallahassee if they were in the Big Ten. Yes, if you watched any of Greg's marathon earlier, you would have found out that from what he's heard, Notre Dame are not fans of the Seminoles unless they're going to play them for their NBC contract money. Steele Austin brings up a great point. Once Sankey Petiti get it to the 48-team Super League model, no Super League, they can pool their resources with media partners to maximize on their TV contract for both regular season and a new playoff model. But I think, got another great comment here. If I can find it. There we go. From our friend the Big Lubbock. If CFB wants congressional help, there will need to be 60 to 72 schools included.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think we're moving towards Big 12, Big 10, SEC.
Agreed. I think after today, it's going to be a 20-20-20 model. Like, I think there's going to be 3 mega conferences with 20 teams each. That's what it's looking like.
Mr. Ed Weiner, good to see you, Mr. Ed. From ACC Top Brands perspective, with the motivation to pay $200 million now to get in the Big Ten is take a partial share now, like Oregon and Washington, and then get a full share in 2031 when next deal is finalized. I don't know. Listen, if you think, I completely understand the FOMO. Fear of missing out. There might be schools that say, hey, look, it's better we just pay $200 million now and secure a spot than wait 5 years and pay $100 million and there might not be a spot. So I'm sure of that. In my personal opinion, Mr. Ed, I think the Big Ten would prefer to wait a few years at least, get a little more information under their belt, get a little feeling out process going, talk to their media partners, gearing up towards 2029, 2030, get an idea of who works best for them and how big they want to go.
Mo, and I just want to jump in here too.
Yep.
I think that the math, I have not broken it out, but I would guess here that the math would support you as a Florida State fan, as a Clemson fan, as a Miami fan, paying the full $200 million and agreeing to a 5 or 10 year grant of rights with the Big Ten, if you had that opportunity, and getting a $0 payout. I don't even think that you need a payout to make it worthwhile in the long term.
Yeah.
Like at the SMU proposal that you could try to pitch the Big Ten would actually pay itself off as long as the Big Ten remains around.
Yep.
And the ACC is destabilized now, but SMU sure did get a lot of exposure last year. They're not getting a payout. They got a college football playoff cut. It's been good for that school. And I think any school that has a Big Ten opportunity should consider not even taking a payout for 5 or 10 years. If that's the agreement, I think that would actually be.
I could not agree more. I don't think the money is nice. Money's always nice, right? Schools need it nowadays to survive, NIL and everything. This is about the perception of your school, and if you're in one of the best conferences in America. The perception right now is driving the bus.
I mean, you get $23 million in college football playoff payout money, even if you didn't get anything on the normal media rights deal.
That's right. And you're in the best conference.
And you're there for good. You're not going to get kicked out. So you take that with a zero payout for 10 years.
Yeah, and you have to think about this, guys. Let's say the 200 million is accurate. Tomorrow, UNC rolls up, drops a check for 200 million. They have somehow freed themselves of the Wolfpack backpack.
Yeah, still unsure there, right?
Let's not fool ourselves that there would not be an invitation from the SEC or the Big Ten waiting for them. There would. Other schools, not so much. Look, I mean, with Miami and Florida State, you got to believe the Big Ten and SEC, whoever's bidding is going to play those two teams against each other. They are. They're going to try and get the best deal they can from whichever team's willing to play ball, because they can say, well, we can get Florida State for cheaper, or we can get Miami for cheaper, or, so lots of ins and lots of outs. Devil Frog, a very valued member. Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, Texas Tech, the next big rivalry. Sure. Why not? Yeah.
Rivalry. Facts.
Get ready to speak Big 12, buddy. Big 12 to ACC. Yeah, you got to wonder what the people in Pittsburgh. Ooh.
Oh,
Pitt is the one school that's hanging out there, and nobody knows.
We've all been saying who's going to be the Colorado for the ACC. I think we can all agree that Pitt's going to be the Utah.
Yeah, right. I think Louisville is the Colorado.
Yeah, agreed. I agree with both of you guys. Although Virginia Tech's been really quiet and sneaky.
That's true.
And Virginia Tech I'm going to go back to this, guys. Check it out. Okay, so this is the payout. This is like the viewership numbers last 5 years for the Nelson rated games. And Virginia Tech is 10th in the ACC.
Huh.
And they have a share of, like, when you're looking at 17 total schools, they've got like a viewership share of about 4.23. That's way less than they should be on average in the conference. They're below the median point. So you're talking about Virginia Tech's reality, in my view, they will be taking a pay cut in this new iteration of brand initiatives in the ACC. Like, this is just reality. And so Louisville is sitting here in 5th spot. They might get a little bit pay enhancement based on the brand initiative for viewership. But Virginia Tech, Pitt, Syracuse, right there, guys. These are the schools that are really getting it. Same thing with NC State. And so they might be taking pay cuts, and like it's already tight with the Big 12. And how much can you take? Feeling ignored and everything. Virginia Tech might be the wedge at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Brings up a great comment from Timothy Green. I would like to know, if possible, how this could help West Virginia. You just showed you. Syracuse, Pittsburgh, Virginia Tech. You get 2 rivals and 3 travel partners. I think that's a pretty damn good deal. I'd like to see the Backyard Brawl return to an annual game. Vox Quindaro says, Kansas finally committed, and then the asteroid hit earlier today. Now the world is different. Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. I don't know. Tony Lawson says, Will Duke is a genius.
Untrue.
Agreed.
I know these inflate my ego.
Less Will do to genius, more Moen's a
Will
fashion icon.
Possible.
Guys, explain the motivation for including 60-plus teams. Why would Fox, ESPN doing all of this consolidation? What's the point? I'd appreciate hearing your reasoning for 60 to 72 teams. I think we're going to make that the last one tonight, guys. We'll go ahead and we'll each give an answer on that. Steele, Austin, I think it's going to be 60 to 72 teams because you need Congress. And there's a lot of states. Every state gets 2 senators. There's a lot of states that the Big 12 covers. You got to keep them Big 12 teams happy as well.
I agree with what Moan said, and I think you do get a little consolidation by going to 60, because right now you're sitting at 72 to 74 if you're including Wazoo and Oregon State, and I think that you could take a little bit more of the milk suckers and just kind of jettison them away. Like, let's be honest about it. That's exactly what happened. If you went to 60 in a 2020 with the Big 12 as the last super conference, essentially, is looking like it's trending that way. It would save the media partners money because they're not having as much payout per school. There's not 72 schools to pay. There's 60. And you'd get some of the top brands consolidated too. So it looks like it's trending towards 60.
Okay, Nate?
I would just say that I agree with both of what you guys are saying. At the end of the day, they're going to include as many schools as they possibly can without watering it down a ton. What that magic number is, we don't know, but I've been saying 3 conferences, 20 teams for months and months and months. And like you just said, I think it's trending that way. But I will admit, time will tell. You know, the stuff we've revealed today isn't gonna change lives. But I would just tell you to keep your spectacles on, paying attention, because we're following those trends. And right now, the ACC, it's on timer.
Absolutely. All right, go ahead and give your programming note, Nate. You're going to be on the show tomorrow night. David McKenzie is out. Rec Talk is in, so you guys will be talking about ACC stuff, I assume.
Yes, and I'm going to bring in some politics as well. We haven't talked politics at all tonight, but Virginia and North Carolina, what do you do with them?
And that'll be at 8 p.m. tomorrow night here on the College Football Mafia
Sorry,
Network.
yeah, I didn't follow. Yeah, 8 p.m. tomorrow, Eastern time, and then Wednesday, Bob Thompson.
Absolutely. Wednesday, big show. Bob Thompson, former head honcho of Fox Sports, co-creator of the Big Ten Network with Jim Delaney. You will definitely want to tune in for that one. That is going to be a hell of a show. Get a little drum roll on that. I want to, you have anything coming up this week? We've got a new members-only video, Wild Ute University, that's available now to all the members. So if you received one of those gifted memberships tonight, right after the show, go ahead and pop over there and check it out. But what else do we have coming down the pike for them?
I mean, just we'll see what goes on with this tomorrow. We got to see if this $200 million figure for the immediate exit, it can be corroborated by somebody else. Andy Staples reported, very reputable on 3. Can that be corroborated? And if that's the case, guys, this is just going to blow people's minds. This is huge. This is the biggest realignment related news that we've had since the Pac-12.
Exactly right.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Exactly right. And it opens up the AAC, the Pac-12, and the Mountain West.
There you go. Before we go, I want to give special shout-outs to CFB Peek Around the Corner with Greg Pflugar, Carrigo Knowles, Morris Simmons, Miami Flow, MBM with the 50-piece, Earl Carr with more gifted memberships. He's a stud. Ricky Tungate, Carrigo Knowles again, Go Black 45, Morris Simmons again, and Daniel Gygax for the support tonight. You guys are awesome. You're helping us do awesome things here at the College Football Mafia Network with the most awesome audience in college football.
Yes, sir.
All the members of the Mafia family. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Have a good evening. Stay tuned tomorrow. You never know. Maybe an afternoon show might pop up here on the College Football Mafia Network. It might happen. So make sure you have those notifications turned on and you are following us on Twitter.
Peace.
And Timothy Green, we'll let him do this. Absolutely a fantastic show, guys. Keep up the good work. I always loved watching, and I always love when people watch us. For myself, for Wild Ute, for Nate, everybody have a good evening, and peace out.